Welcome to the first ever episode of the Crown. What is this called? Crown Score. All right. I got it right. Welcome to the first ever episode of the Crown Score podcast. Thank you for joining us on Wednesday, February 17th, 2021. First episode of this podcast, we're going to try to keep you entertained on the Charlotte sports scene, keep you updated about what's going on. I'm Kevin Stewart. I'm one of the three hosts of the show. Just to intro my other two hosts, the first guy I'm introducing here, I've known him for 15 years, believe it or not. Former Penn State running back. You can hear him here in Charlotte on ESPN 730. He's called local college games here in the area. The first host, Reggie Walker.
What's up, man? I'm glad to be here. I can't wait. This is episode 1. It's only going to get better. Kev, I don't think people realize the conversations you and I used to have back in yesteryear.
My other co-host, you know him as the Panthers Twitter content king. He's a co-host of the Roar podcast and Clemson pregame. You can find him on Twitter at One Panther Place. John Illis.
Twitter content king wasn't what I was going for in high school, but here we are. So let's move forward. Thank you, Kevin. That's great.
Hey, you got to go where the world takes you, right?
I am thrilled beyond words to be doing this with you guys. I'm honored. You guys are legends in the business, man, and I'm hitching on here, having a little good time with you.
So thank you guys for being on with me. It means a lot. I'm looking forward to doing this. And what do you say we talk some football?
Let's do it.
So the first episode topic is going to be where the Panthers stand in the NFC South. The Saints won the division. They've had a lot of success recently. That page is now turning. Drew Brees is retiring. The Bucs, as you know, won the Super Bowl. I think the division is theirs, even though they didn't win it. The Falcons are the Falcons. We know what's going on with them, but I think the Panthers are closer than they are, considering the weapons that they have. We'll talk about the quarterback position later, but Reggie, first up, where do you think the Panthers stand in this division, and how soon do you think that they can call it their own?
I think you look at this team right now, I would say they're probably in that kind of third spot. I think they should consistently play better than Atlanta. The difference is Atlanta is a nightmare in terms of a matchup because they can get after the quarterback up front. And that's where the Panthers struggle, is protecting the quarterback. So that's the reason why they continue to have issues with Atlanta. But outside of that, I do think top to bottom, they're generally the roster, I think, is better. I mean, you look at Atlanta, Matt Ryan at the quarterback position. Some people say he's much better than Teddy. I wouldn't say much better, but I would say he's better. And then Julio Jones, that's a whole different conversation. But after that, Ridley as well. And then after that, things start to even out a little bit. And then you look at where the Panthers struggle offensive line-wise versus where Atlanta is with the defensive front. And I think that's where you see the difference in these two teams. So I think it's an interesting time for Carolina because if they add some pieces, fix the offensive line, I think let that young defense continue to improve. Look, think about it. And Matt Ryan is on the other side of 35. Drew Brees is on the other side of 40. Tom Brady is on the other side of 40. We talk about quarterback being the most important position in the sport. And I would argue that in the division, if they decided to stick with Teddy Bridgewater, right, wrong, or indifferent, the Carolina Panthers would be in the best place from a quarterback standpoint over the next 3 or 4 years, certainly over the next 2, if they decide to pick up that third year of Teddy's contract. Because I got to think, obviously, Kevin, you already mentioned Drew Brees is retiring. And that's, I mean, we all know that's coming inevitably now. Tom Brady, I would argue that after next year, he's going to walk away regardless. And then Matt Ryan, chances are he's going to either get forced to walk away from Atlanta or walk away from the game completely on his own in the next couple of years. So I think whoever can settle their quarterback position first has a chance to take over this division. And Teddy is by far, guys, the youngest of those guys right now.
That's definitely an interesting take on it. I will say this, that Bridgewater was brought here with the intention of finishing this contract. I don't think anybody thought, unless you're talking about some analysts, I don't know who. A few people out there had question marks about Bridgewater's ability to sustain, not just myself, but others. But I think what we've seen with Teddy this year is the limitations. He'll do some good things in structure. He'll get you, 300 yards at times, throwing, 30 balls. But at the end of the day, when you need somebody to elevate you, he has never been that guy. If he was, I would have shown the tape. I love Teddy. as a human, even as a quarterback. I think, Reggie brought up some good points. There's some age happening right now in this division. Teddy is the youngest of the bunch. I'm fascinated though, because there's been a lot of talk about how will he respond if they can't trade him and they draft a quarterback. And, of course, all the conversation has been, well, we don't know if we like Bridgewater anymore. We might deal him. Detroit was clearly in the mix with Carolina. So how does Bridgewater respond to that? From people I've spoken to on this, and I think you guys can probably echo it, Kevin, you've reported on him. He's as well equipped as anybody mentally to handle that. He's been through the ringer in terms of injuries, obviously with the ACL. He's had to bounce around to get his way back. And I think he probably appreciates the fact that this organization gave him a chance to rebound. Does he feel like he did the best he could? I don't think so. He's humble enough to know that. But I don't think that'll be a problem. Whether or not he stays here next year is dependent on a trade, because they're not going to release him without a trade. It doesn't make cap sense. He's got a $20+ million cap hit, and it would leave a wake of dead money that Carolina can ill afford right now. So, yeah, I'd love to see Teddy elevate and do great things with McCaffrey coming back possibly. However, if you listen to some reporting today, it may be a little loose reporting from David Newton, who's apparently has said on ESPN that the Panthers are willing to go all out and even trade McCaffrey for Deshaun Watson.
That'd be a huge mistake.
Well, I don't know if it'd be a mistake or not, and I don't know if that's reporting more than speculation at this point. But
here's what I would say with that. I think, and I'm going to slightly disagree with that, Kev, and here's why. If that saves you some draft capital and it gets you off of that contract, it looks different. If you take some of that draft capital that you save and fix this offensive line and protect Teddy, whether it's Teddy or Deshaun Watson, I think that looks different. Because what will happen is if they move Christian McCaffrey in that contract, what that tells me is they're going to go ahead and pay Curtis Samuel. Because if you really look at the skill set, they're very similar. And they probably think they could get Curtis for a little bit less because he's not a true running back, as Christian McCaffrey is, who was able to kind of command and ask for a little bit more money because he takes that pounding. And so I think that would be the writing on the wall there. But to your point, if you're trading Teddy and Christian and 4 or 5 draft picks all this year or all in the first and second round the next 2 years, then I kind of have to agree with you that probably would be a mistake, because now, yes, you're going to get Deshaun Watson, but you've taken one weapon theoretically, right, in McCaffrey away from him, and you still don't have the requisite pieces to go fix an offensive line to protect your investment. Let's not get this too twisted. The Carolina offensive line is not that much better. I would argue they're about the same as the one that Deshaun Watson plays behind with the Houston Texans. Right. And that's a football team that was 5-11 last year also. So at the end of the day, you might be putting him in a similar situation. Yes, the receivers, I would argue, are probably a little bit better. But at the end of the day, do we want to see Deshaun Watson doing the same thing he was doing last year, which is running for his life? Yeah, he may throw for 5,000 yards, but if they can't keep him from getting sacked 40 times, what difference does that make?
I think offensive line.
There's a counter argument to be made there, and I agree with Reggie on many points there. But two things: Bridgewater has a lot of miles from college, and he has a lot of miles from his early part of his career. So you have to start wondering at some point with running backs, when is it time? And they just signed the contracts. I know this sounds silly, but market conditions have changed a little bit. Deshaun Watson wasn't available, and now you see other quarterbacks out there. Is it viable to trade him? Sure it is. Is it going to happen? I don't know. Would it make sense to do that if it saved you some draft capital? Absolutely, I do, I think. And I think the world of Christian. But he hasn't been in the starting lineup for a Panthers win since November of 2019.
The Titan game.
So you start to look at the impact of players.
Sore spot.
On that. Yeah, I mean, again, I was at that game. It was fun. They were chanting MVP.
Guys.
I'm from Tennessee. That hurt.
To your guys' point, I think offensive line play was on full display during the Super Bowl. I mean, every time Patrick Mahomes dropped back, he was running for his life. And no matter how dynamic he is, you need to protect him.
Yeah.
So
Well,
if you're going to
I
trade,
think Scott Fitterer might be able to do some things outside of the first round. We tend to forget that. We get we're in Herney world. We've been in Herney world forever, that it's the first round. And then, now we're in
I'm
a place where Fitterer sort of values, and he comes from a program with Schneider, with Carroll, who they're not afraid to make moves. They're not afraid to go get guys in the second, third round and plug them in, like a Damian Lewis, who played very well at guard this year. So again, they're going to have to do some things on the O-line, Watson or otherwise. Do 3 first rounders in the next 3 years mean more to you guys than a 25-year-old MVP candidate in his prime? I know the thing about the offensive line. I get it.
three first rounders, no. But if you're talking about 4 first rounders, multiple second rounders, and 2 players, I got an issue with that.
I mean, look what the Lions got for Stafford. That sets the bar right there.
And that's the problem.
Watson is so much better than Stafford at this moment, and he's so much younger.
And that's my problem, Kev, with that whole trade, is because that trade was about Sean McVay flexing that he thinks his offense is what makes Jared Goff, not the other way around. That's number one. Number two, he's also under pressure. When you got Jalen Ramsey on your defense and Aaron Donald on your defense, you cannot waste years. You cannot afford, you have to go for it. So I think that situation is about a coach and a GM and a front office and an administration of a team, if you will, that realizes they got a tight window. And you also look at it, they look around and they see San Francisco is not what they were because they have a quarterback issue, right? Arizona is not, listen, you can say what you want about Kyler Murray. The rest of that is not a good football team. So if you're looking at it from Sean McVay's standpoint, he's looking at it, right? Agree. But that's about all they got. Because again, Kyler Murray runs around like crazy and he got popped late in the season and you saw his demeanor change real quick too. So, when you look at this Rams team, they're looking up going, the only person we got to worry about is up there in Seattle, Russell Wilson. And now they're having some issues. So this might be the perfect time for McVay to strike again and get back to a Super Bowl. Although I would argue this, if Tampa comes back intact, the Rams ain't beating them.
No. But let's get back to the Rams. You say they're going for it. They've given up first round picks. I don't know how many years in a row.
Yeah, like 3 years in a row or something.
They don't value them. As far as I'm assuming that the Panthers are going to go into next year with Teddy under center. I am.
There's not a lot out there. I mean, just Trubisky, maybe. I mean, Billy and I talked about that. 1 year, $10 million, maybe. Would you take that?
No.
Okay.
Now, I'm not replacing Teddy with him.
Then you got Fitzpatrick sitting out there at 39.
I think if you bring in a Ryan Fitzpatrick, he can be a guy that could put some heat on Teddy.
Yeah, I agree with that. The problem with Fitzpatrick is, he's a guy that just got benched, number one. Yeah. And now we get why. I'm not maligning him for that, but we get why. Number two, what has everybody said about Fitzpatrick throughout his entire career? The same thing we're hearing about Teddy Bridgewater now. He's pretty good, but he can't win the big one. He can't take you over the top. He can't win you the big game. So again, I think you're back in the same spot.
I just don't think they need to add any more veteran quarterbacks. They've signed one for 3 years now. He's under contract. And to me, Teddy, how much more does Teddy need pushing? He gave him $33 million guaranteed and a starting job with carte blanche treatment with great weapons, and he threw for 15 touchdowns. I'm just telling you right now, the red zone film wasn't impressive. He did some good things in terms of making plays on the run. I was actually impressed with that a little more in the red zone with the passing game. But the excuses at some point have to stop. Either you're going to be able to fit the bill as a starter or not, and he might get one more shot at it. But I think we've all seen the limitations with the deep ball, with the ability to misfire on some of these, 9 routes and 7 routes. And he just has a reluctancy to his game in the pocket that it doesn't rival the top 10, 15 guys in the league. So I'm not bashing Teddy. I've been called a hater. I mean, look, I'm just looking.
Yeah, we all have.
I'm looking at the tape. When have you ever seen Teddy with a heroic fourth quarter comeback where he's dropping dimes from 30 yards out?
I would argue Joe Brady took one away from him because they should have beat Minnesota, but why are they throwing the football with a 2-possession lead and 9 minutes left in the game? Now, he missed the throw. I'll give it to you.
Now.
Teddy missed the throw down there on the goal line. But
I agree,
if your offensive line was any good, they wouldn't have been throwing that football.
No. I think you need a quarterback who can make that throw if your coordinator wants to have that killer instinct. And I think that was part of the eval process too.
That's fair.
The hell? We're not making the playoffs. Let's see what Teddy can do in this situation. Maybe that's it.
Let me bring up one more hypothetical, and nobody's talking about him because I think we all expect him to remain where he is. But if Dallas Cowboys don't offer Dak Prescott the franchise, or they don't tender him the franchise tag, would you make a run at him? Maybe use a team-controlled contract to flex that numbers? Because, Reggie, you mentioned the McCaffrey contract earlier. His cap hit isn't too bad. It's only about $13 million. Deshaun's is 40. But would you bring in a guy like Dak Prescott?
I don't even try cap games with that. I just open the wallet. I mean, listen, and I know a lot of people don't love Dak, but if someone's going to sit here and tell me Dak is not an upgrade over Teddy Bridgewater, and I'll be the first to tell you, I am a big Teddy guy. I know him personally. I've met him several times. I know his college coaches, all those things. So maybe that's why I'm a little bit nicer about Teddy than other people. But if you got a chance to go get Dak Prescott, you go get Dak Prescott. The problem is, I think that marriage, as jacked up as it is, I do agree that Dak has a lot of leverage in Dallas, and he's going to eventually get what he wants. I think Jerry Jones is trying to act like he's not going to do it. But at the end of the day, Jerry Jones knows if he doesn't bring Dak back, he doesn't have an answer at quarterback. And look, guys, Jerry is not young. And he's trying to win another Super Bowl. You know what I'm getting at. He knows the best case scenario for him outside of trading Dak for Deshaun Watson is Dak Prescott. And we know that Dallas and the Texans ain't going to trade quarterbacks. They're not going to be friends with each other and make deals. So at the end of the day, getting back to your question, Kev, yeah, if there's a chance to make a run at a guy like Dak Prescott, who technically is a free agent, I think you absolutely make a run at him. And then at that point, if you get him in here, you can look Teddy in the face and say, look, man, it's been real, but we're going to dangle you out here for a third, fourth, fifth round pick and move on.
No question.
I mean, Dak's a great player. Well, there's not much more I can say to that. The touchdown interception ratio has been solid. Look, they knocked the playoff stuff. They knocked the wins. Quarterback wins is a terrible measurement. You are what you're surrounded with in terms of coaching, in terms of execution from your line. There have been problems there defensively as well. There have been some hiccups. So Dak, in a lot of ways, was in sort of a Cam Newton conundrum where he was having to carry guys around him that weren't pulling their weight. Now, do I prefer him over Watson? No, not at all. I mean, I think even for the cost, if it costs me as much as we're talking about with Watson, I still go in that direction because that's a top 5, maybe top 3 quarterback. And those are hard to find in the draft, especially in the first round. It seems ridiculous. Go back and look at the last 10 years. It's hit or miss, guys. So it's very much a Plinko game, like Price is Right. You get your chips, a lot of draft picks. You might hit on 1 or 2, but there's no guarantees. When you have a 25-year-old guaranteed thing, or in Dak's case, at his age, guaranteed solid top 10 quarterback, that's definitely an upgrade over Bridgewater. So, yeah, I mean, I'd be willing to listen to it. I mean, if they're going
and Dak isn't that much older than Deshaun either. I think Dak's only like 26, 27.
If they're flirting with Matt Stafford 1 year after talking about patience and building this thing slow, that tells me 2 things. Number 1, the market conditions changed, and they did. And number 2, there was another general manager coming in the door. And I think.
And number 3, they ain't patient.
Well, I'm going to say this. They preach patience, though. And they sent fans to PSL owners about it. And I told people last spring, and you're smart enough to know, man, David Tepper's had enough losing seasons. And Matt Rule is not coming here to spend 5 years as a loser and then finally turn the corner. He saw some options. I think Fitterer kind of opened his eyes up to some of that too. It's like, look, why are we waiting? And that's my thing about the NFL. You're built to compete now. I never understood this whole 3-year thing. It's just go get it.
All right, so it's time for our weekly mailbag segment as our third host, John, has changed locations seemingly on an instant.
Carpool time, folks. You got to pick up the kids or they can't walk themselves home.
If you have
the father is the first job.
Not like the old days. We walked 10 miles through snow in the old days.
So if you have a question for the show, you can email us at crownscorepod@gmail.com. We'll answer one question on the show every week. Include your name, where you're from, and your Twitter handle. Our first question this week, we did not get one via email, surprisingly, without a show in the books yet. But we did get one question from someone on Twitter who Reggie and I have known for quite some time, at Kyle Kiebert. He sent in, what or who do the Hornets need to take that next step and enter the conversation about competing in the East and ultimately a title years down the road with a quickly developing young core?
Oh, I think there's so many directions you can go. Listen, this is not going to be a popular one, but this is one that to me is somebody that's available, right? We know he's available because his team has shut him down.
Blake Griffin?
And you don't have to call anything for him. Andre Drummond. You don't have to call a play for him. You can let the young guys do all the shooting they want. He'll get it off the offensive glass and get his 15 and 10 that way. I think a guy like that, who you don't have to call plays for, who can be productive on the offensive end, who's enough of a deterrent defensively. And the most important piece of this is a guy that's realistically available.
Yeah, look, just let the young guys play. I'm not Adam Schefter. I don't cross over. I don't know enough about the NBA to make a good analysis on this. But I think Ball has exceeded a lot of expectations. He's been a treat to watch. I used to watch the Hornets back in the Tyvola days, man. That was back with Del Curry, LJ, Muggsy. And it's good to see that energy back in another building, but the same colors, all that good stuff. So just build around that young core. I know that sounds like the most generic analysis never, because it is. That's what I do.
Listen, I agree with you. I think they have to keep drafting smart. I mean,
I agree with that.
Miles Bridges, PJ Washington, Devontae Graham, and this year you're hitting a home run with LaMelo.
I mean,
I think what they
every time
got going for them is great. You had to overpay to get a guy like Gordon Hayward in here. A lot of people didn't like it. I thought it was a good move because Charlotte is not a destination city right now in the NBA.
It's not.
It hasn't been for a while.
And it won't be for a while.
Right. So bringing in a guy like Gordon Hayward for that money, NBA money is crazy now anyway. Right. So who cares?
Yeah.
I think what they got going right now is really good. I think they're entertaining. I think they're really fun. I think they're going to make the playoffs. And I think if they just keep drafting smart, I mean, that's what you're going to have to do to build this team.
And you mentioned drafting smart twice, and you know why I love that comment? Because listen, some people didn't love the LaMelo Ball pick, and here was my thing on it. This was a 3-player draft. You had the 3rd pick, and you ended up with the guy that a lot of people thought should have been the number 1 pick.
Mm-hmm.
Keep calm. To Kev's point, keep drafting smart, and that's why I said Andre Drummond to me makes more sense because you don't have to touch much of that young core to bring him in. You could probably bring him in here for a couple of picks, later and just absorb the contract. And I think that can help you because, again, he's a guy you don't have to call anything for. Am I saying that's the perfect solution? No. But what I'm saying is don't overpay for somebody and give up a whole lot of draft capital and mortgage your future for someone that you don't know is going to help you because they're going to need the basketball. The one thing about Andre Drummond, he doesn't need the basketball because he goes and gets it on his own.
All right, first episode in the books. How do you guys feel about it? Think we got a show going forward?
I think it's going to be fantastic.
As long as we got Ellis, we're good.
Rusty. I admit it. The Panthers team hat on today. I didn't have my hair looking good and anything. Next week we're going full suit, no team attire, and a professional studio.
Sounds like a plan.
All right, I like that.
This is great, guys. Man, I'm looking forward to doing this all year. This is awesome.
I am too, guys. Appreciate it.
See y'all next week.